It's Wolfie back here with Wolfie's Thoughts. I realised I sounded like an absolute boomer being like, welcome back to Wolfie's Thoughts. So I want to kill myself with that because that's on the internet now. But yeah, this is episode 3. I have my fabulous other half, Daniel. He's my first guest on the podcast, which I'm very happy with. I have some amazing guests lined up. Some people who run businesses, some people who are into spiritual aspect of stuff. Myself and Dan are going to be talking about what it was like dating, obviously me as a recovering addict now, but also dating someone in addiction, and obviously sharing our story on how that went, how we met, what it's like dealing with someone addiction, and Dan's going to talk a little bit about his own vices with substances and stuff like that. So if it is something that you would be interested in, stick around. So it's me, Wolfie, otherwise known Stephen, if you're personal and you like it like that. And I have an amazing guest today on the podcast. Wolfie's Thoughts. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Oops, wrong social media account. My partner, Dan. Would you like to give yourself a wee introduction, Daniel?
Hello, I'm Dan, and I'm a full-time house husband, or bitch, if you want to put it like that.
I swear this has not been recorded previously because our dog decided that he would sing the song with people because we were ignoring him. Be a dog parent. Be a parent in general, they said. It'd be fun. No, I thought while getting a dog, I was not going to have all the issues that normal people have run into with a child. Precursors to that, our dog broke his toe, and neither of us slept Sunday night, Monday night, Sunday night.
Monday night. It was Monday night.
Monday night, yeah, because I was meant to be in work Tuesday. I had to use a day PTO because, first of all, my company dickheads won't give me formal leave, which is what you can use when you have a medical emergency for a family member. Apparently, dogs aren't family. Technically, according to the law, they are. That's another day's conversation. I will have someone come on from who works in that company with me, and we won't talk about who they are, but we will bitch about them. But Georgie broke his toe. We've no idea. He kamikazes down the stairs. He's a staffy. He's full of energy. But he broke his left outer claw on his back leg. So he's on really strong painkillers and is very much taking after me. And the fact that he very much wants a pill every 5 seconds and is only allowed one a day and fully has tried to rob the packet of painkillers off me several times. So yeah, just a precursor to why the podcast has been recorded at a very late in the evening on Thursday night when it's posted tomorrow morning. So best of luck to me editing this and having it all ready for tomorrow morning. But yeah, let's kind of get into it, Dan.
Yeah, I just want to point out we were a good bit into the last recording before we had to pause and restart because there was just a dog giving out in the background the whole time.
Sure, look, it was the universe saying that we had to get the little things out of the way before. Yeah. We do love our child. Just want to point that out. Georgie is the best. He is like the most amazing thing in both of our lives, and we do love him. But he is a professional pain in the ass, and that's coming from 2 gays. Well, again, a bisexual. So yeah, look, this episode is about dating a recovering addict or someone in addiction. Because Dan has been with me since I've been an addict. Not all 13 years, but the last 3. Last 2, I would have been addiction in a year sober.
I knew 2 years into it, and then we're together a year sober now.
Yeah, so you would have known me in my last 2 years of addiction, so the heaviest part of it. You went for the fun parts. So we have a few points that we want to kind of dabble into, and it's very much a flowing conversation, so we might chop and change between topics and stuff like that. But I suppose to kind of start the episode off, I suppose we should really talk about how we met. We don't know, well, we kind of do have a date range, which is really funny. So me and my ex had split up and then I started dating Dan. I say dating, it was very complicated at the start, but we'll get into that. So like we kind of know each other 4 years at this stage. We're dating technically 2.5, 3 years, but if you go by dates, we're boyfriends the last 2 years. We've known each other technically 4, and we've been seeing each other for 3. We like to make things complicated. Would you wanna start how we met, or will I?
Well, I'll say my side of it. So it was me and my mum walking the dog up the road to the front of the estate, and this is during lockdowns. I suppose like not exactly then, but during COVID, and Stephen's housemate just leaned out the window and goes, "Gee, that's a lovely dog." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." And Stephen was in the kitchen apparently saying, "Get back in here." And I was talking to his housemate about how great my French bulldog was. And
Frank,
yeah. And then about, I suppose, 2 weeks later, I was just in the verge of getting to know myself more, and I came out of the closet just that year. And I went on a dating app, saw Stephen's profile, messaged him, said, "Hey, how's the head?" And then we took it from there. We were just like bitching about mental health.
Yeah, my unhinged ass. Well, just to I should go back to the part where my old housemate was hanging out the window during COVID because we were all locked in our houses and we had all gone a bit cuckoo, and we didn't have a dog at the time. We did later. My other housemate, who no longer lives with me, but we're very close friends, adopted a dog during COVID. Who we love, which is Blue. He's the best dog ever. Him and Georgie aren't so much friends, but maybe at some point in their life, probably not. They're about head cases. I was actually with my ex at that time. Or I don't know if we'd split up. I can't remember because that entire 2 years of my life is a complete and utter blur. There's parts of it I remember, but it was funny because Owen, who was my old housemate, had made a joke with him "Oh, I wonder if that's his sister," referring to Dan's mom. Dan hates when I talk about stuff like this, but it's funny. Shout out to Liz, you're right. Because this we'll also talk about when I was in rehab. This was also a comment that was said to me and Dan, and we pissed ourselves laughing. And she was like, "Oh my god, were they giving me compliments?" I'm like, "Okay, less of the ego boost." No. But I was like to Owen, get the fuck back in. We don't know who, not that we don't know who these people are. I was like, please don't scare the neighbours. Thank you. Even though he'd lived there longer than me, but I was like, can you stop hanging out of the window like a crazy man after a dog that we don't know? And then, as he said, we met on a dating app, if you would call it that. You looked, you're like, it was a dating app. And I'm like, sure, that app's used for dating. If you could see the eyes I'm giving right now. Yeah, you asked me how my head was, and the thing is, actually, because we had recorded this bar previously, when you sent me that, I was going to reply with a joke from Drag Race when I haven't had any complaints yet, but for some reason, I don't know if the stars in the universe were aligned, and maybe my ancestors were like, this one's a good one. Definitely not my sister. No, we'll get to that point later. And I was like, oh, I'll actually answer honestly. And at that I remember at that night, at that point, I was so low mentally, and I literally just spat out loads of words to Dan, and I think a voice message and a couple of text messages what was happening, and you ended up coming up to me and we were chatting. I was in a very low place at the time, just from stuff that happened between my ex and just life in general. I was like, suicide. And that's kind of where we first met. And I suppose what was it? It was a couple of hours that night, that we sat there and just talked about mental health. I listened to him, he listened to me, and then he ghosted me for 3 months.
I was expecting you to text me first.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm gonna pull the I was an addict card. I couldn't function as a human being, never mind save someone's number. Now, if you'd been my dealer at the time, I would have known your number off by heart. But you weren't. You did ghost me. You had my number.
Yeah, but I was just starting a new job and moving to a new area, and basically 3 months went by click of the fingers, and
Beg to differ.
I said to myself, "Oh yeah, that guy lives up the road, so I'll just send him a text and see if he wants to hang out."
So yeah, then we hung out. We had a technical error there. I realized something wasn't turned on, and then we actually listened back, and it's actually okay. Love creating a podcast. It's real fun. Dan doesn't realize how much work goes into this, haven't you?
Yeah, I know. People on YouTube make it look easy.
And on podcast platforms like Riverside.
Okay.
That we use. I'm joking. But yeah, no, we met, and then obviously we didn't talk for 3 months?
At the start, it was 3 months after the first meeting, and then probably 2 weeks after the next one. And then basically we were attached at the hip after that, basically.
And I used to make this joke when we first met to Dan. I'm just a warm mat for you. Which, at points was true.
Yeah, I was still getting to know myself then,
And I suppose I needed to, looking back on it as well, I didn't understand back then, what I was giving to Dan, not in a sexual sense. Well, yeah, no, he enjoyed that too. Was obviously I've been out since I was 17. I have dated far too many people, because I'm a hoe, a recovering hoe. Haven't been a hoe in a very long time. But I had a lot of experiences in life. I used to work in LGBT youth groups and stuff like that. I'm probably going to talk about that at some point, and kind of some of the changes I was helped make over the years and stuff like that. So I have a lot of knowledge. I'm a drag queen. I'm in the scene. Well, I was in the scene. I don't tend to, involve myself much more because I'm old and I can't step past half 10. But I suppose you kind of enjoyed coming up and kind of hearing about stuff or being able to ask questions. And like I suppose that's where we developed a friendship before anything. Like yes, there was other things happening and stuff like that, and you know, men have needs, women have needs and stuff like that. But it was a friendship where we could talk, and like you, I suppose, even though it was the most chaotic safe space ever, because I was an unhinged addict that like could switch on a dime. I suppose there was that kind of safety. I suppose from what I think, from our conversations back then, you didn't have anyone else you could talk to about it. Stuff to do with like the queer community and like the feelings you were feeling and your fear of your family reacting and stuff like that. And I suppose that's what it looked like from my end. Obviously, I can't say what you were feeling.
You hit the nail on the head there. So what I needed at that point of just being 24 and only coming out of the closet then was someone who I could talk to and hear that like, oh, my way of dealing with it wasn't just unique to me, that people have very unique experiences and some similar about how they approach it and how they come out. And it made me feel normal when I thought I was crazy and I had done something wrong by just not being myself for so many years, when I knew like there was more to life than just the way I was living.
No, of course, and like there's the other side of it as well. Like I'm a full blown mo or queer, whatever at this stage I identify as me or as Wolfie. He's fuck identifying as nothing else other than a figment that I've made on the internet. Because being me is scary. Obviously growing up bisexual, like you have like that's the thing, like you do but like both sexes, you're interested in both women and men and everything that comes in between that. So obviously it was a bit different, and obviously because I had worked with you for so long and I had worked with people who were trans, who were non-binary and that kind of stuff, I suppose I was kind of a bit of a knowledge book to bounce off and ask questions and like figure out stuff. Like I obviously I'm not an encyclopedia of knowing all the knowledge, but I suppose it was a soundboard that you could bounce off. And I suppose that's the one thing I do love that I was able to provide to you in my addiction. I would have much preferred been able to do it while sober, but we can't change the past. Okay, that's kind of like how we met, and then obviously we continued dating. It got a little bit more serious. You asked me to be your boyfriend on my birthday because I may or may not have been mean and was like, wife me up or I'm gonna go fuck other men. Which it worked, but it was also mean. But that's something that I've been able to like work on and understand like how that's not okay and like how that may have made Dan feel at the time. And we've obviously openly discussed that and how it did make Dan feel at the time. I just am referring to you in third person like you're not here. See, Dan is very much still here. Dan has also realised how hard it is to make a podcast, how much talking involved. And
yeah, no, we've been talking with practice runs for about 50 minutes now.
It's a bit erratic, it's not that far. But yeah, no, like it was a nice time that we had before obviously the shit hit the fan with me. When I went completely cuckoo with my addiction. So like we then would have got together and Dan would have introduced me to your mom. We would have, drank and partied and whatever. And like the relationship was, I suppose it wasn't tumultuous at the start, but like, we didn't always see eye to eye.
yeah, but like I was coming out of 2 years of cannabis addiction and I was just feeling the effects of that, like taking medication because like my thoughts were so chaotic and overwhelming. And then like I seen how you were doing and I was aware that like it's a slippery slope and like it just takes one day and then before you know it it's a daily thing then. And I just knew like you could have helped me and I could help you and we could walk this path together. So I kind of just knew I wanted to stick in this for the long run.
Okay. No, I do, and that was me as well. Like I was like, that was the fear I had as well because I kept trying to push you away, and like I suppose there was motive behind some of the the shittier things I did because I was like, I don't want to ruin this kid. I'm broken, I'm damaged, and that's how I used to think about myself. And I'm like, I can understand that I have trauma now, and like it doesn't define me. And I was trying to teach Dan that at the time as well, that like your past doesn't define who you are as now. And like I'm still learning to do that, and so are you. Obviously, you're on your own journey of healing, and obviously, I ended up going to rehab and like, you know, dealing with all of my stuff mostly, dealing with all them feelings and dealing with them now without any medications. Real fun. It's just like great. I can cry at ads. It's real fun. But yeah, no, like it was tumultuous, and as I previously mentioned in the first episode, obviously shit hit the fan. Christmas 2022. Was it 2022? I don't know. It's all fucking blurred to me at this stage. Yeah, Christmas 2022. Yeah, because I went to rehab in 2023. Where we got into an altercation. Which was, I suppose both parties were involved in it. I suppose I would have piqued the reasoning for why we were fighting and whatever. And then that would have snowballed into obviously the week-long bender I went on before I got sober. And then it would have been, I suppose, me kind of owning up to the fact that I was an addict and, seeking help for addiction and going to the doctors. And I suppose that's where Dan kind of really seen the effect of it, because I suppose we had talked about me being an addict, and I'd often joked. I was like, "Oh, Jesus, I'm an alcoholic," and I was open about it. Like I knew I was an addiction, and I knew there was something up with me, and that's where like Dan and his mom and my family would have assisted me in like getting the support. And then like obviously I got my place in rehab and I went in, and like that was the hardest thing ever was like I went into rehab for 5 full weeks with no contact to Dan. My biggest fear was he was going to leave me when I was in there, which was a real fear, because why would you want to stick around for someone who has to go away for 5 weeks and you can't contact them, and then it leaves you for 5 weeks thinking about all the fucking shitty shit they've done? Like I remember, obviously you were very supportive about me going in, and I do remember this the night before. It's like, do you have to? It's like, yeah, no, babe, do you have to? I know you're gonna miss me in 5 weeks and you can't text me, and you're like, I'm not gonna survive. He's like, do you have to? I'm like, no, I do, dude. It's not gonna work if I don't. So like, how did it like? Obviously, I don't remember January 2023. It is a complete and utter blur to me. I was in the last episode, I did mention obviously like how like obviously the way I came off everything was very, very unsafe, and I would not recommend it. But like, what was it like in January and February? Obviously, with everything that was happening, like that's not something you've dealt with in your life before, or like been around that I know of. Like obviously someone going to rehab, well maybe like people, but not someone that close, like your partner or someone that you love. What was that like to do?
So basically, like I knew someone was going in to better themselves, and how could I give up on them? So I just had to say to myself, like, this is a blessing. Like, someone is actually, you keep saying someone as well. We're talking about someone who's not here, basically.
Well, yeah, I'm not. Old me isn't here anymore.
Yeah. So I just knew you were going in to better yourself, and I was very proud of you, and I wanted to stick around. And like, if it worked out at the end of it, like, because like I was aware, like, one thing people say when you're going into recovery is like you need to be single, and that was in my mind. But the main thing was
I told my rehab to fuck off.
Yeah, the main thing that stuck with me was you were going in to bet yourself for us and yourself, and I just love you for that, and I wanted to be there through the whole thing. And yeah, like it's fantastic. Like, look where we are now.
No, of course, and like I suppose it did give you a lot of time to think as well, because I remember, so like the first couple of weeks of being in there, like you don't have contact with anyone for the first week. They're like, no, we're going to cut you off the entire world, including your loved ones. And it really works because it makes you sit there and think. And I remember the first phone call I got with Dan. I was like, do you still love me? Like, I think I was there day 2 and I wrote him a letter. I was like, I'm so sorry for everything. And I meant it, but like, it's funny thinking back now. I was like, please love me. Don't leave me. Like, can you tell I have abandonment issues? We love trauma. But yeah, like it gave me a lot of time to think. But like the other thing as well, when you're in rehab, you're taken away from the rest of society. You're protected. You're in this little bubble. You have counselors. You've prepared meals. You're doing things. Life still goes on the outside. So like Dan was dealing with all of the feelings of me not being there, but then thinking about everything I'd put him through for like the previous year while I was in rehab, and he couldn't contact me. She'd be like, hey, yo, cunt, you're an asshole. So like, how was that to deal with?
Yeah, I won't lie. It popped into my head maximum 3 times. I was like, I should just leave his ass. But then I was like, oh no, like he's a lovely person. He's gorgeous. He's got this magnificent beard and all that. So I was just hooked.
Which I recently shaved off.
Yeah, it's even cuter now.
You are so homosexual, it's not funny. But like that's the thing. And then during my rehab process, obviously Dan was allowed to visit with his mum, and my family were allowed to visit. I think he came with my mum as well. I don't know, it's all fucking blur. And then there's a thing called a CP day, which is a concerned person. So my mum, my dad, and Dan were the 3 people I picked to do it. And that was fun. That was where I had to sit in a room with all of my peers who were in my therapy group. And Dan was allowed to sit across from me. I had to shut the fuck up and say nothing, which is really enjoyable as someone who loves to talk, has ADHD, and is an addict. Because at the time I was only like coming into like 2 months and a bit maybe sober. So like they've like brought up all your previous trauma and all that shit. So like you feel rough in there, and then they're like, okay, your boyfriend's now going to come in and read you for filth, for 45 minutes. We were talking about it before the recording this. I was like, was it 15 minutes? Was it 45? It felt like eternity for me. Where obviously you were able to come in and my counsellors asked you questions and we're like, okay, how did Stephen affect you? And let him know, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what was that like?
I had no idea how long I had to speak for. And it turns out it was 45 minutes because...
Just to point out, they did tell him this beforehand and he still like to blame it on me. I'm like, well, you weren't listening to the introduction. That's like a you problem.
Yeah, so 15 minutes I was just like bringing up how I felt and how the struggles we went through came up and what it made me feel like. Just the only thing I really took away from that 45 minutes was there was one moment where you kind of confronted me about something that I had no idea where the origin was from. It was purely, I believe, trauma based, and it came out of the blue one night. And that's basically what I had to say in that CP day. Was it just came out of the blue, and I had no awareness of what you were feeling, and just kind of triggered me into how I used to feel when I was going through, like, I suppose, marijuana withdrawals, if you want to call it that, because it is a psychological addiction, and just the anxiety and the panic kind of made me feel like I was back in that bad place. And yeah, so 45 minutes was a long time to talk.
No, really. Well, how would you think it was like sitting there in silence, not being able to respond, but like, that's wrong. The fucker did obviously speak really open from the heart for like the first 15 to 20 minutes, and then decided for the rest of it he was going to utter creations of things in his brain. Like when he told my counsellors that I told him that he had to come out to his dad or I was going to dump him or something.
Yeah, no.
Or no, I had outed him to his dad.
Yeah,
and I was like, that never happened.
It came out wrong. There was a little seed there, but it just came out as something totally different.
I was like, can we not make me out to be a fucking monster? Thank you. I know I'm an asshole. Didn't do that though. His dad now knows we date. We live in the same house. But yeah, like obviously we've talked about how it affected you, me being in there, and I've seen it not been around for 5 weeks. Is like the other side of it as well. Like, yeah, I was going in there to better myself for us and for me and to like live life and whatever. But like it does take a toll on the other person in the relationship, because like obviously someone who's there, like I practically lived with Dan at that stage because I'd like taken sick leave from work and was living with him at that time. I was gone for 5 weeks. Like, what did that, like, how did you feel mentally with that? Like, not having, like, you could text me, but, like, I couldn't reply. My phone was taken away from me.
Yeah, I was texting you while you were in there, so you had stuff to read when you came out. I am romantic, am I?
Yeah, sure. When's our anniversary?
30th of June.
Yeah, because it's my birthday, bitch. That's why. Oh, wait, you forgot that the other day.
You didn't say 30th. I would have remembered if you said 30th. Yeah, okay.
What does it, like, how do you think it affected you, like, not being able to have that instant response,
like I just started a new job, and as you said, life goes on outside, and I just kept busy. It felt like a long period of time, and I was just missing you. And I think it was when you kind of came out that everything kind of hit me, when I realized the change you went through in there, like the emotion and the openness. That's when those 5 weeks actually hit me, like, wow, we was actually somewhere doing something, and not just like on holiday, I suppose. Like, it was a total life-changing experience, and I seen that literally the first night you came back, like there was tears involved, and
I couldn't stop crying.
yeah.
I was like, you can leave me, it's fine. I know I'm an asshole. And Dan's like, no. I'm like, he's like, why are you crying? I'm like, shh, I don't know. They gave me feelings again.
Yeah, it's about forgiveness, you know. Like, and I hope you forgive me for the actions I played in your addiction, like, you know. So
No, of course. And like, that's the thing. Like, it's a growing thing. Like, I came out, I wasn't fixed. That's the thing. When you go to rehab or you get help, like, they just give you the tools. It's you that then does the further work on yourself. And I suppose I came out, like, as I said, and I will always say, I came out like a sacrificial lamb. Wondering, like, oh my God, what's going on in real life now? Because you don't know. Like, you come out as a newborn because you, like, they've torn down all of your walls. So, like, it was the other side of it as well. Like, you had to relearn me because I wasn't the person you started dating. Like, it was a different person. I had feelings. I was able to talk, which is something like you struggle with. Like, I was very much about communication and all that. And Dan was like, well, no, you weren't like this before. Why are you asking questions? Why are you asking how I feel? I'm like, because I care. And he was like, stop. Which is like obviously something that's new to both of us and we've been dealing with now and working on. It's constant learning and understanding how the other person feels. But I can understand, I remember seeing that as well. Like, you didn't know how to react the first night when I was there because I had been gone for so long, and then obviously pulling back, I'm just back there and I'm like, I'm fixed now. Very much wasn't, it was still a mess. But like, I can't ever understand what that is like because I haven't been on the receiving end of it. But I can think and maybe, prophesize in my head what it would feel like that, someone's come back who's completely different. Because, like, Jesus, I was a shell of a person who went in, and then I came back and I was like, okay, like, these are the things I need to do, and this is the process, which obviously was a big change as well because, like, I had to go to like 3 meetings a week. I had my rehab meeting as well. I wasn't working at the time. I was, still employed, but I was on long-term sick leave. So, like, I had a lot of time to think, and obviously Dan was working at the time, and didn't really want to come home to me being like, so how do you feel? Do you still hate me? Do you love me? It was a constant, and obviously I had to understand and learn then that was like affecting Dan and his being able to deal with me. So, like, there was tough times at the start. If we're honest, like, it was hard for me, it was hard for you. There was boundaries that needed to be set. There was, like, understanding what it was going to be like, and that it's quite tough to date someone who's in early recovery because we have to be very careful about like what I do, what I'm around. Like, I didn't want to go to parties or events at the start because it was something that was very triggering. Obviously now I do, and it's something that we can both enjoy. And, like, I suppose with that, like, do you think, would you go back and do it different?
I approached it with love overall, and that's what I still remember from even just talking the first night you were back. It's like, I'm approaching this with love and like open to whatever road we have to take. And it was like it's about the spin you put on it. Like, it was a positive spin for me because I seen it as something good, and that's what I took it as. We went from there onwards. That's the only way you can kind of walk that path, isn't it? Like, yeah.
Like, you have to be open to change and understanding, and that's also difficult, obviously, for me who's in recovery, and Dan who, is on his healing journey. And in regards to, obviously, recovery is different for everyone. Obviously, how you did the 12 steps and stuff like that, and Dan is on his own journey, and that's Dan's. But, like, that's the other side of it as well. I think when I first came out, I was like, everyone needs to be sober. It's amazing. Which was what I suppose would have been quite a lot for you and your mom and my mom, just generally everyone in my life. I was like, you should, like, stop. You're an addict. You like to self-diagnose everyone, which, like, obviously in the long term, I understood that was wrong. But I was just I wanted to help the people, and I was like, look, this amazing life I've been given. Why wouldn't you want it? So, like, I do know, and I remember that kind of brought up a few things for us because, each person's recovery is their own, and if they want it or not. And I'm not saying that Dan's an active addict or anything like that, but it's the effects of, having taken substances and stuff like that, and how alcohol actually affects you. Because it is technically poison. Well, not technically, it is actually poison.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that can kill you a lot quicker than all the rest of them. Well, I suppose heroin can kill you a lot quicker. But, like, with that, obviously, then I'm living now a year on in recovery. Obviously, dealing with the addiction was quite hard, but like in recovery now, we have noticed. Obviously, there's been bumps in the road, and there's been discussions, and is this what we both want? And how has it been having to deal with me as sober? Not as in like, oh, is it hard to deal with me, but like there's been bumps in the road in regards to like obviously how I feel about drinking and it been around me and like the use of other substances like marijuana and stuff like that, because I know how it affects you. How has like been living with me with someone who's sober? And obviously I don't go around like telling everyone they should be sober or anything like that anymore, but obviously I'm very for the lifestyle. I'm not the lifestyle, I'm very for the choice of being sober and like and how good it is, and getting help and dealing with your inner demons and stuff like that. I know that can be a lot. How was that kind of affected you?
I always look at things from a place of comparison. I probably shouldn't do that. Like, I had to give up marijuana because of how it affected me, and living with someone who is in sobriety full time is not challenging, but it's like it makes you more self aware. And I find it difficult to just say, "Oh, I'm gonna get 4 cans on a Friday and just sit in the sitting room and watch TV," because like I'm there by myself and I'm just thinking like Stephen's upstairs talking to his friends and I'm rotting on the couch, if you want to put it like that.
Well, it's not that I won't be around you drinking or anything like that. Like we go to the bar, we go to events and stuff like that. And like I do spend time with you if you're having a few beveraginos, as we like to call them. But like it does me being sober, because like you can see the effects of what it has on you. Like have I ruined drinking for you?
You've ruined opening cans for me because I'm so cautious not to make that
Yeah,
sound.
no, this is the thing. I've spoke to people in recovery as well. So like I drink Diet Coke because it's a carbonated beverage and I can't have alcohol. And the noise of a can of Diet Coke opening is very much different to the noise of a beer can. For some reason, in like obviously it's a triggering noise, because like even when I was in addiction, I would vomit in my mouth when I did it. Like when I knew I didn't want to drink, but I needed to because my body was like having tremors and shit, and I was fucking freaking out, and I needed it to like calm me down, which I didn't. But that's the addictive brain talking. It's so triggering. I could, even if he opens a can downstairs and the door shut, I will hear it up here, because like it's just that in-deftly bred into my brain. I'm like, ugh. And that's where I kind of try to explain to people, and I've tried to explain to you, that's how much I'm far removed from it. That even the thought and that noise is like, oh no. But like, I suppose that kind of does ruin the enjoyment of drinking for you. Like my mom and my brother have said it, like, because I'm so open about like how good life is now, like being with someone in recovery tends to like kind of take the fun out of drinking or using and stuff like that. And how's that been to deal with?
It's kind of made me like I don't know if respect is the right word for it. Like respect my body and not poison it as often as I used to. I just have to be so aware, like because I see you waking up in the morning fresh, and I'm just wallowing in bed for like 2 hours from a hangover. And
not that I allow you. Like that was a selfish decision you made by yourself.
Yeah.
You, me, and the dog are doing something now, and I'm like, but I'm dying. I'm like, cool, don't care.
There's a catchphrase for you have self-inflicted wounds. I have no sympathy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, sorry, you did that to yourself. It's like stabbing yourself in the side and being like, and it hurts. I'm like, well, duh.
And yeah, I just want to point out, like, if anyone is in a relationship with someone like that's sober, it's one thing that sticks with me is like I don't like doing it, but like I always think, what do people think when they see me drinking and Stephen sober? Like should I be doing it with him? But like it's very difficult for me to just quit it altogether, because if I say to myself I'm not drinking anymore, it's like in my head, get a drink then. But if I just say I'll have 4 cans on the weekend, it's kind of easier for me to just navigate them waters.
No, of course, and like that's your own journey, and obviously it's like I can't force sobriety on anyone. I obviously know how good it is and what it's done for me and what it's done for others that I know. But that is the other side of it as well. Like even if I was to touch wood, never will, relapse, I wouldn't enjoy drinking because I've ruined it for myself. And that kind of happens when you date someone who is in recovery, because you can see the positives to it and it kind of outweighs the negatives. And it's just like, oh, well, yeah. And then obviously it makes you look at yourself. So you're like, oh, but when I tell myself I don't want to drink or I don't need it, my brain's saying like I do. And then obviously you go through that internal turmoil of like, oh my God, am I an addict? Which I know we've had conversations about before. And it's like, I don't think you're an addict. I think obviously you do have, tendencies and stuff like that, but it does kind of take the fun out of, just having a can, because you're like, oh, I know the outcome of this and how I'm going to feel. And that kind of ruins it for everyone.
Yeah.
Also, we're not 21
I was about
anymore.
to say that I'm not 21 anymore. I
Yeah.
miss them days.
It's like, that's the thing. Like, we're 20. We're both 29 this year, so like it's a bit different then as well, because like we have a life, we have a dog, we have a house to take care of and stuff like that. I'm working, and Dan takes care of the house at the moment. And so like we've things to do, we've plans, we have events to go to, friends to meet and stuff like that. So like we have life to live. And I suppose when you're 21, you can just pop up out of the bed and be like, it's grand, and go out 3 days in a row. Where like when you're 29, it's just like, yeah, no, after one can I already feel the hangover.
There's no time to waste those 2 days. Like,
literally. Like, that's the thing at the end of it. When I was in addiction, like I would have 5-day hangovers, but like I was drinking every day or every second day, so like the hangovers just ran into each other. So like I was consecutively just hungover for 10 years, because people are like, how did you like deal with like drinking 4 bottles of wine in a night and like a bag of Coke and like cans? I'm like, oh, because it was just me topping myself up for 10 years. The hangover never really ended. It was just constant. So obviously, because you drink so sparsely, each time you're like, oh, this is fucking fucked.
Yeah.
And it's not fun. And I think like that's just something, I suppose, I guess at some point maybe you won't, like, and that's the thing, I love you whether you drink or you don't drink. It's not up to me for that decision. It's up to you and what you want to do.
Yeah, like I had my issues with performance enhancers and marijuana and psychedelics, but that was a very heavy usage, and it just, I knew like that was a problem for me. But when like I came into COVID and I just found alcohol, like I never really drank before that, it was like I didn't know my limits, so I did overdrink, and I did think to myself, wow, this is like an addiction. But I was just trying to calm my thoughts more than anything, because I was just so overwhelmed from my previous usage of psychedelics, and alcohol was a crutch for me, and I just didn't know my limit. But like I now feel like for me, like 4 cans is kind of just easy to deal with, and I don't even like, sometimes I wouldn't even want to, but like it's on a Friday, it's just kind of like the culture of it's Friday, so it's hard to get away from all that. And it's very like, all credit to you, like seeing ads on TV everywhere you go and still saying sober, because you know how good it is for you, is like amazing, and give you all the credit for it.
No, of course, and that's the other side of it as well. Like, it was a choice I made. Like, I got sober because I needed it, because I was gonna die. Like, Dan knows this. I was gonna kill myself, or I was gonna fucking overdose, whether it was on purpose or not. So like, it wasn't really a choice that I made. It was like, okay, do you want to live or do you want to die? And obviously, I love Dan, and I wanted to be with him, and I wanted to have a life, and I wanted to like build what we're building. And like the side of it, like with the cans, as I've always said to you, like there's things called harm reduction. So like, do I think you being sober is something that is in your remit at this current moment? No. May you want that in the future? Yeah, you could, but like we don't know what the future holds. But like, you don't binge, you don't do what you used to do alcohol. So like that, it's different. So like I would fully trust you if you were to continue to drink and stuff like that. But also I'd be the first person to point it out to you. But like, that's not healthy. Hence why it's real fun living with me. It's like, that's not a healthy thought process. That's not a healthy thing to do. But like it's like, recovery is not for everyone. First of all, I know people who've went back out, that I was in rehab with, that I know that are family and stuff like that. Recovery, you have to want it for you. You can't do it for anyone else. It has to be for you. And that can sound really selfish, because all addicts are, and addiction is selfish, but you have to be selfish to recover for yourself, so the others around you can recover. So like, I have seen Dan recover over the last year in regards to our relationship, but then personally as well, because like me getting sober was then giving me the ability to create a safe space for the two of us. that we could like obviously recover our trauma and stuff like that and get help with that. So I think like whether the ruining the drinking for you that I have done,
It's not the worst thing that ever happened.
No. I don't think so. And I think it's just giving you an understanding like, okay, I have to keep an eye on this. It's something that, that may be a thing and it may not. Like the thing, it's better to know about something than not. And obviously it's like walking somewhere blind. You're better knowing the directions and just aimlessly wandering around. So like you have the knowledge now. And understanding of like what it all is. And obviously I'm there to help, and there's different people you can reach out and stuff like that. Well, then I suppose in recovery, obviously, like before I got recovered, before I like obviously came into the rooms and went to rehab and stuff like that, I would have been very spiritual. Hi Georgie, do you want to say hello to the podcast? Georgie's decided he is no longer sitting in the spare bedroom and he wants to come in and annoy us. Hi darling. Yes, daddies are recording a podcast. That's you good, your best boy. That's the best part ever. Can you give daddy 5 minutes? No. This is what it's like when we try to be intimate with each other, isn't it, right, Dan?
Yeah.
Georgie's like, no, I'm going to stare at you, and then he gets kicked out of the room, and he's very angry about it. But previously to getting sober, I would have been, quite spiritual, and I kind of shown Dan some of the things that I was, had abilities to do and stuff like that. I don't really talk about it that openly, so I'll just advise like there's things that I'm, I suppose I have abilities. I sound not crazy. Well, I'm already crazy, so but yeah, there's like we have very different spiritual kind of thoughts and how I view things and how Dan is, and I suppose that's been a journey in itself, like trying to understand and respect the other person's views as well as having your own. Obviously we both have had a history of mental health issues as well, so that kind of does take into balance what we feel and understand. And what like how do you feel? Like I know I'm very strong about mine, and you're very strong about yours, and like how do you feel that affects us?
Like for me, it's not like something I discovered along the way. Like it's just for me, it's like remembering what I forgot, and I just have a way of feeling like that. I know in my heart what I believe to be true, and it's to each their own. As long as you have faith, like it's a good thing for you, and to see the spiritual side of life, to awaken and meet people that have similar viewpoints is very fulfilling, and it's almost like its own community, I suppose. We have different ways of looking at it. Like like it's not like they're wrong or clash. Even it's like they actually complement each other because they're so in the world of infinite possibilities. Like how can everything not exist together?
No, of course, and that's the thing. It's not like that we have like well, I'm this and you're that. Like we just view spirituality differently, and that's the beautiful thing. And we can come together with our beliefs. Like I'm not saying that he's a Protestant and I'm a Catholic or anything like that. I don't believe in organized religion, and Dan doesn't believe in organized religion. Ish, kind of.
No,
Yeah,
Gnostics
like
aren't organized religion. They were a subdivision of Christianity who got ran out because they believed in reincarnation. So,
and we'll speak about that on another podcast because Dan could talk about that for 7 hours. But yeah, no, like we believe and we have our own kind of thoughts and the universe and stuff like that. And I do really think that the universe brought us together at points in our lives where we were both not ready to deal with what we had, but then along that path we collided, and like it gave us the space that we have now and what we're doing. And we're both very like we would love to control our lives and be like, this is where I'd like to go. But we know that path's already been laid out for us, and it can never change, and we have absolutely zero control over it because it's up to the universe and whatever else is out there. But yeah, no, it's like being able to like talk to someone about it, because I know obviously with previous partners they were like, you crazy. But we're like with you, I'm just like, no, you're crazy, and then you're like, no, you're crazy, and we're both crazy together. So like it's kind of nice to be able to like have them conversations, like to understand like, okay, this is what I'm feeling, and like I don't know, it's supposed the openness about it.
Yeah, like the way I kind of feel like I had to walk a certain path to become the person I am today, and through that journey I was open to love and meeting someone that matched that path I walked, and I don't know if like there's like soul contracts if you want to get into that, like about meeting people and having an agreement to spend a life together, you know. And am I going a bit off the rails here, or is that too much?
No, not at all. No, we will definitely do an episode, obviously, on kind of the stuff that me and Dan do believe in, and I'll maybe go in more depth about what I just kind of glossed over because I didn't really mention what I do actually do. If you know me, I am a practicing member of the Wiccan, which I said that online. Well, I suppose I've said it on other platforms, but there's things that I believe in, and so does Dan, and like it's something that we were very, very interested in regards to obviously the afterlife and stuff like that, and how it works, and the different beliefs and kind of techniques and stuff like that, and meditation. But yeah, it's been a very enjoyable time recording this with you, Dan. I won't lie.
Yeah.
Dan doesn't tend to be on social media, and I'm very proud of him for that. He obviously removed himself from something that's very toxic, and then I'm like, no, I'm gonna do that. I've done it since I was 12. Can't get off it. Sounds like a drug. But yeah, no, it's been very enjoyable, and I'm sure that we will record more. There's another couple of episodes that we have that we want to do. But yeah, like if you've enjoyed, why don't you rate the podcast, leave us a wee comment, share it with your friends, and we will be back next week with a new episode.
Shout out Frankie the Bulldog.
Frankie the Bulldog? Your dog's a French Bulldog.
Yeah, it's the same thing, isn't it?
No, a Bulldog is a very much bigger dog, darling. The French Bulldog, it's a snarly little shit is what it is. Frankie is a Bulldog. French Bulldog. Because a Bulldog is the English Bulldog, love.
Okay.
And we have a Staffordshire Bull Terrier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shout out to the Bulldogs.
Right.
All of them.
Goodbye.